Welcome back into another episode of the Spaceman 2.0 Phoenix Truth Rising Show. Here to help you grow in the knowledge and wisdom of truth, and the truth will set you free. With the best history lesson and spiritual insights on the planet, exposure of the Illuminati's plan of world conquest and control is the death knell to the New World Order. So let's just calm the raging fires, especially of judgment, which is our worst basic negative sin we can be doing. Sin means missing the mark, by the way, which means not hitting the bullseye. So when you judge, be very clear with what you're discerning, that it's of the laws of God and the creation. You're judging the behavior and not the individual, the soul of the other. And with that being said, we're going to get back into you must not judge others, but you must wisely judge all behavior and actions which are contrary to the laws of balance of God and the creation. And we're going to get a little understanding more of what karma truly means, as well as what it means that your word represents your integrity, to honor to the best of your ability all promises made. And your personal power is in direct relationship to the integrity of your soul. And let's continue on. So a recap of number 12, you must not judge others, but you must wisely judge all behavior and actions which are contrary to the laws of balance of God and the creation. And Emmanuel wisely told the people, judge not falsely, lest you be judged falsely. For with whatever judgment you judge, so will you be judged. And with whatever measure you measure, so will you be measured. Therefore judge according to the logic of the laws of nature which are from the creation, for they alone are true and accurate. What do you see but the splinter in your brother's eye, and are you not aware of the sliver in thine own eye? You hypocrite, first pull the sliver out of your own eye, and then see how you can pull the splinter out of your brother's eye. First learn the laws of nature and of the creation, their logic, before you judge and want to see the mistakes of your fellow man. First learn through the laws of nature and of the creation your own mistakes, so that you can correct the mistakes of your fellow man. You should never give sacred things unto the dogs, nor throw your pearls before the swine, lest they step on them with their feet and turn on you and tear you apart. For verily I say unto you, do not throw your spiritual treasures into the dirt, and do not waste them on those who are unworthy, for they do not thank you, and they will tear you apart. For their understanding is small, and their spirit is weak. End quote. And they called his name Emmanuel. That's another journal. I already went over that one. You can go back in the list and see that one as well if you like. Which may be a little bit controversial, but it is the true and accurate story of the Gospel of Izu Emmanuel by Judas Iscariot. Okay. Exactly as it is written, no one must ever judge another to be lesser or more than he, especially because the other is of different color, race, creed, or sex, or planet than be you. But understand this carefully. You must wisely judge the behaviors and actions by anyone, including self, which you know are against life, meaning against or contrary to the laws which maintain the balance created by God within the creation. And so you must honor all of your brothers and sisters as equal fragments of the one. But you must not accept, tolerate, or allow behavior and actions to continue in your space, which you know break the laws of balance. But you must not think harshly of another and call him stupid or not worthy, because he is different in personality and behavior than you are and understand. Each is equal in reflection of God, only different. Celebrate and honor the unique differences of others. They, as are you, are expressing the Father within them in a unique and glorious way. Remember, God allows ignorance of the laws only to a point, and then he is pushed out of the temple of any of his fragments who continue with their blatant disregard and honor for life. Next law, number 13. As you sow, so shall you reap, also called the law of cause and effect. Now, this is the law that most choose to ignore or misunderstand when they do not want to take personal responsibility for their manifested experience, perceived good and or especially bad. God created cause and effect so that each soul fragment would recognize that when he did a specific act, say stole a car from his brother, that there would be an effect to his transgression, such as perhaps going to jail. But the nature of the effect is produced in a way unique to each individual fragment, which will bring the greatest opportunity for the understanding of the lesson for that soul fragment. Unfortunately for many, the repeat and repeat of similar same errors has continued over the course of some thousands of years. Yes, it is by choice that the soul would refuse to take personal responsibility for his thoughts, words, and deeds. The catch is, all are responsible for all, which occurs within their manifested illusion. Whether or not one wisely chooses to finally recognize and accept this truth is entirely up to each. They will still suffer the consequences of their actions which are contrary to God's laws, and or they will also reap the divine benefits of understanding and obeying God's laws. Now in your Eastern religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, they have a term called karma, defined in Funk and Wagnall's dictionary as 1. The spiritual force generated by one's actions which determines one's reincarnated situation. 2. Loosely, fate. 3. Vibration. Karma, even by this definition, does not accurately describe the same purpose or meaning of simple cause and effect. The term karma, loosely believed by many, implies you must do this or that has occurred because it is your karma, implying that it is also your fate. One can fall in the rut of blaming all experiences on their karma, and therefore not adequately learning the lesson to release this perceived karma. The definition of karma implies that yes, there are consequences to your actions, but that you are doomed to pay back lifetime after lifetime, and does not take into consideration the release of payback when the lesson is truly learned by the soul fragment. That's called grace, my friends, if you truly understand the lesson. Remember this, at any instant when the true understanding and recognition has occurred regarding the error and effects of one's actions, that one can, through self-forgiveness, release any repetition of a transgression against another, self, and God. For example, let's say that the one known as Hitler, who was responsible for the death of millions, truly recognized and understood his transgressions against God in the moments before he made his death transition. All things are possible, friends. And in those moments before his death, from this life stream, he prayed to the God within him for forgiveness of self and all others, and that he then put his will into God's will to be of service only unto the Father. Now, for ones who believe in karma, they would say that the soul energy that was Hitler would be doomed to the same prosecution he committed on others, as well as at least 1 million deaths at the hands of a tyrant such as was he. And if Hitler refused to see his folly, then undoubtedly his self-judgment before God would be severe. But depending on the level of his understanding or learning of the lessons, his payback could be that he becomes one who devotes his entire next reincarnation life streams to the service of God by helping his fellow brethren overcome their spiritual starvation. Do you think then that it is not possible that God would not welcome his servant back within his fold of truth, love, and light? One must never forget that even the victims of Hitler's hatred chose their victimhood. If ones choose not to become victims to anyone or any situations by always honoring God within self and all others, and thus living in balance with the laws of God and the creation, they would no longer create victimizers such as Hitler. It is really so simple. If they learn their lessons of how and why they created their victimhood, then they would also forgive themselves and all who they perceived victimized them, so that they too could release and be free of the bondage of karma. And on top of forgiveness, the release may involve actually being ever thankful to the Father within for bringing the lesson to them and thus helping them recognize their self-transgressions and becoming now free from the bondage of victimhood. Do you see the picture now? The responsibility for all manifested experiences lies with all who share in and exist within the experience. Okay, let me try to get through this one before I get into the next one, which is a doozy. You must obey the wisdom of God for the responsible and balanced procreation of your species. We'll leave that for the next episode. So, 14, you must honor all commitments made in service to God, the Father, the one within. Now, let us describe what commitments are made in service to God versus commitments of this manifested illusion. Your most important commitment in service to God is to wisely understand and obey the laws of God and the creation, which we are unfolding for you here. This is the excellent way for honoring self and God within, all others in service to God and the creation. Simply understand and obey the laws of God and the creation. You once have made this commitment difficult onto yourselves, and it needed any longer be so. You now have the laws before you, and you need not any longer claim ignorance or misunderstanding. Do you see? Claim your divine holy godness now. We are all one. The time is now before you to know and own the truth. Now let us discuss the other types of commitments made by first defining what commitment means in Funk and Wagnall's dictionary. 1. The act of committing to devote oneself unreservedly or the state of being committed. 2. An engagement or pledge to do something. Other commitments which are made in service to God include marriage, parenthood, feeding and tending the physically hungry, poor, and ill, and spreading the word of truth about the Spirit of God and the creation to all of your spiritually ignorant and starved brethren who will listen. Now, a commitment to make to buy a house or a car on credit to be paid by future income is shaky at best for both parties agreeing to these terms. Credit in this circumstance is a promise to pay later at some designated future time. Many families are now finding, and many more will find, that they cannot honor this promise to pay because many have lost or will lose their jobs and thus do not have the income to pay. This is an example of a commitment which is not in service to God. Trillions of credit dollars have been made by few by the manipulation of credit, and so too has trillions been lost by the many who have become trapped in obligations they cannot pay for. There are thousands of examples of commitments made of this type. So we'll finish off the commitment, honoring all commitments made in service to God, in the next episode. But remember this, what Saint Germain said: your personal power is in direct proportionate to the integrity of your soul. So, just like this says down here, your personal power is in direct relationship to the integrity of your soul. So I'll be back with another episode. Thanks for tuning in. Please like